Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, a new version of Manjaro dropped, and so I want to have a look at it. Although, after reading the documentation, I actually think I want to look at the Gnome version as well, since the Gnome version added some of the software that will bring it up to some form of compliance with Brazil's crazy age laws. But this one here does not actually have any of that. There's no prompt on any age or anything else like that. Even the Gnome edition, I don't think it does. So we're going to have a look at the XFCE edition. They released three main ones. Of course, their main ones in Manjaro are Gnome, Plasma, and XFCE. And I've always thought that the Manjaro, they had one of the best, most beautiful, and full-functioning implementations for especially an Arch-based system. Now, it's not like Arch, pure Arch, in that they're not using Arch repositories. They're using Manjaro repositories, which trail behind Arch by not too much time. And so this is, if you want something that's Arch but not quite as edge but still pretty edge, Manjaro is a really good, really beautiful option. I used Manjaro as my full-time work computer for I think the first 3 or so years in the van before the Raspberry Pi 5 came out. I ran my office on a Raspberry Pi 4, and at the time I put that system together back in 2001, I believe, Manjaro was the best implementation of a full desktop on a Raspberry Pi, which is why I went with that particular option. So I want to talk about some of the things that made it good. Now, I used Plasma on that one. This one here is XFCE. So even for XFCE, it does look a lot more modern than XFCE tends to be. And a lot of that is because they put a lot into theming it and making everything work pretty well. So let's go ahead and have a look at the various things here. First, we'll go ahead and I'm going to actually pull up a terminal application. Or actually, if you do your Control-T, you do get a terminal, but it's kind of locks at the top. I guess it doesn't lock at the top. I don't have the commands maximizing it and things like that. So I just want to go ahead and use this one here just to show you what the system is looking like. This is what our system looks like. It's running 1.57 gig. I don't know how much of that is the screen recording I'm doing is outside of the virtual machine. This is not on real hardware. We're running this on the a Gnome boxes is what we're running this on. So you can see it's actually working pretty good. And I did install Fast Fetch so we can look at the system specs and whatnot. So you can see here we are on Linux kernel 7.1. Now you have LTS options available for the kernel. I'll show you where those are here. We're running, I think we're running, let's see, tell me our file system. I think we're running ButterFS. Yes, we're running ButterFS for our file system down here. So this system is actually working pretty good, especially for being in virtualization. Now, as far as their major changes, there's not a lot of huge major adjustments in the XFCE. Of course, it's not necessarily a project that's moving super duper fast. This is still running on X, so if you are caught up in the X versus Wayland and you prefer X as a system, this actually is still running X. Let me see if I can find my About XFCE over here. So you'll see we're running on X11 here. Again, we see our kernel. I've given this, I think, 4 gigs of RAM, so you can see what we're doing there. As far as the other features, really everything else is kind of pretty minor tweaks and adjustments. The couple things that they mention, if you look at your panel preferences, now they do the length in pixel set rather than in percentages. So that's something that has subtly changed. And they mention a few of the various things inside of their settings have a few more options. They actually point to one in the desktop that I haven't seen under the context menu with removing the delete option. I didn't see that as an option. Oh well. What we do actually have is under your appearances, under settings, you can enable header bars and dialogues or disable them. So there's just a few other minor tweaking things just to kind of make the system look a little bit better, a little bit nicer for some people. You can dig through the various settings and see what type of options there are. One of the things that they mentioned, I didn't actually get a chance to look into, is under a dual monitor setup. There actually are some configurations you can do before you even plug the monitor in. That's something I did not get a chance to look at, and if I were in my home office right now, I would actually have done that. I would have installed this onto real hardware and tested out a dual monitor setup, and maybe even unplugged one of the monitors, played around with that setting. That's one of the other things that they mention in their release notes here. I think what might be the most useful for some people is they've added a few new options to Thunar, one of those being the ability to highlight files in different colors. So you see here I put 2 files in here. They're just empty text files. And you can go in here and you can indicate certain files. So if you had 37 pictures in this file and you have 3 favorite ones, you could actually go in here, you can right click, go under your properties, and then there is the highlight option here, which you can set as the foreground or as the background. Let me do this one. I'm going to set that as the background, apply that. And I found that it didn't really apply. I came over here and added some icons to it, and that tended to be what caused it to apply stuff. I'm not sure why it's not applying immediately right now, but that is the process that I did. It applied the first time. So let me see if I can get that working again. Let's see. There's highlight. There's example text. There's set foreground, and let's go white set background. Let's see what that does. So I played around with this a little bit, and it was a little bit janky, but eventually it did actually work, so it wasn't as effective. You can see there we changed just the title of the file to red while keeping the background white. So you can see that the file settings does have extra options. So it's actually a pretty good thing. We did mention kernels. This is under the Manjaro specific settings. So Manjaro has its own settings packages which go above and beyond what XFCE usually does. And if I can get this expanded here. So here's some hardware configurations, keyboard settings, user accounts. There's nobody, and there's your administrator. But under your, let me pull that back open. Under your kernel here, this is actually where you have the various kernels available to your system. So we are running the 7.1. If you are feeling saucy, you can install the experimental 7.2. Which is a release candidate, or if you need an LTS, you have a couple different options of an LTS. The 6.6, the 6.12, or the 6.18 LTSs are also options. And I guess the 6.1. So there's a number of different kernels you can install, and that's actually nice that you can see that you can adjust your kernels easily within the system. That's not always the easiest option that you have. Here's installed your various language packs. You can add or adjust for different languages if you wanted to do that. We'll go ahead and not continue on the unknown right now on languages. And then again, your localities. So that is your various Manjaro specific settings as well. Here's some notifications you can do. Now, as far as installing software, Manjaro uses Pamac to interface with Pacman. Pacman, of course, being the package manager. Pamac is the GUI interface, and I've always really liked this one for an Arch system. I've installed this on most of my Arch systems. I believe I have this installed on my Endeavor system as we speak. It will give you the icon there if you have updates. You can actually go into your settings and you can turn off that that feature there. So if I go under my preferences, you will have to enter your administrative password for that, and you can see that you can check how frequently do you want it to check for updates. You can automatically check it or not check for updates. And then you can also automatically download, automatically upgrade at shutdown, or if you do not have any updates, you can have it hide the system tray icon. So that will not show up in there. Parallel downloads, of course, how many things will download at a time. You can adjust your mirrors, and then how many versions of each package do you want to keep. And then you can remove only the uninstalled packages. So you can remove all of those. Now, under your advanced, you have some other options for removing dependencies. All those are disabled. It will always check for disk space, though, which is a problem. If you run out of disk space, your system will become completely unstable and crash out. So you don't want that to happen. So it is going to check for disk space. And then you can, of course, set upgrades to ignore. Under your third party, this is where you can enable your AUR support. I don't know if they have it all completely fixed and under control over there, so I would advise caution against that. But also, if you like flat packs or snaps, you can turn those on inside here as well. I think that Pamac does this better than anybody because you have the various options here to turn these on or turn these off. If you like Snap, you can use it. If you don't like Snap, you don't have to. And as the system is right now, Pamac is only looking for packages inside of Pac-Man. So this is actually a pretty good, very user-friendly system. You can sort it by various topics, things like that. Here's your productivity. We do have LibreOffice there. I have LibreOffice installed. I think I did anyway. Let me double check. Yeah, I have LibreOffice installed. Manjaro gives you the option on the installation screen if you want to install LibreOffice. Is it SoftMaker Office and no Office Suite at all? There's a couple different options that you have. So I can't remember what the other one was. So Manjaro itself does solve a lot of good problems. They have a system that works out of the box. It runs pretty well. There have been some people who say occasionally it will blow itself up. That tends to happen. That tends to happen with Arch-based systems. At least it used to. In 4 years using it, 3 or 4 years, however long I used it as my full-time system, I never had any problems with it. So overall, I do like Manjaro. I do find it to be a very nice build. And I am interested also in having a look once again at that Gnome edition to see what they did. You can see looking at the software packages installed by default, it does feel like a complete system. We have a lot of various system tools that you might need, anything that you'd cover. So it does feel like a full, complete operating system. It is easy to manage, and they actually do have a lot of features in here, making it, in my opinion, a good distribution for new users switching to Linux that want something a little bit more advanced. So there is what the latest Manjaro 26.1 brings. There is this forum post that they have on the release here, so you can see about it. They have the information there on the Gnome, on the Plasma, and on what we just did, the XFCE. I will look at the Gnome version again because it does have a tool on there, the big parental controls. I want to see what those look like on the Gnome environment. So stay tuned for that video in the coming few days. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts about all this in the comments down below.